Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation. My name is Yazdan Mansourian. I am a lecturer in the School of Information Studies at Charles Sturt University in Australia. In this presentation, I'm talking about my research program here, and I will talk about capturing the joy of information in serious leisure research, and I will have a methodological reflection on the applicability of qualitative methods in this context. Basically, at the beginning of this presentation, I need to provide an overall picture of my research program, and I need to define a number of terms and concepts, and then I will have my methodological reflection. My research area is human information behavior. Whatever we do in terms of searching, seeking, collecting, organizing, sharing, and produce information in everyday life activities, in our study, in our job activities, in our career, for health purposes, for different kinds of purposes, that's human information behavior. And in this research area, there are different contexts. I focus on leisure context, non-work related activities, and specifically I focus on serious leisure, which I will explain in a few minutes. And then in this serious leisure, I will focus on the joy of information. So joyful information seeking, joyful information sharing, and things like that. So what is serious leisure? If this is a new term for you, this is a term that originally coined by Robert Stevens in 1982. And it includes a wide range of hobbies, amateurism, and volunteer activities, which are inspiring, interesting, and sufficiently substantial and adequately challenging for the participants. And what do I mean by that? Basically, if you consider a casual leisure, like walking in a park or watching TV or reading a book, you don't need a specific skills or expertise to do that. But for some hobbies, like for example, bonsai growing, bird watching, fishing, things like that, you need to learn something. You need to have a time commitment. You need to interact with different sources of information for long term. That's why it's serious leisure. So Robert Stevens considers 6 criteria for leisure activities, which can then we can consider them as serious. So first of all, perseverance and commitment, as I said earlier, and then potentiality to turn into a career. So for example, bonsai growing is a hobby, but there are so many bonsai growers around the world that this is their career. They earn money, but they started it as a hobby and then they turned it into a career. And then it requires significant personal effort. It's supposed to be not very easy or too easy. So, for example, for a bird watcher, you need to travel different parts of country. You need to learn different birds' names. You need to learn their habits. And so it's not easy. However, investing time and energy on these activities usually bring durable personal and social benefits for people. And the research shows that there is a very long list of benefits like self-actualization, sense of achievement, social connectedness, things like that, that I will explain in a minute. And then usually they have a unique ethos within a social world. So for example, people who spend time being volunteer, rescuing, volunteer firefighters, they do it because they are passionate about it, because they believe in something. They have a motivation to do that. And eventually, in long-term engagement with these serious leisure activities, actually have create some form of personal and social identity for people. So we know them with their hobbies. So that's serious leisure. So it can be done in many ways. It can be a form of collecting, like coin collectors, stamp collectors, match collectors, so for example, in Wagga Wagga, the city that I'm living in Australia at the moment in New South Wales, we have a museum, Museum of Riverina, and there is a huge collection of doorknobs and door knockers. So someone just traveled around the world and collect that. So making, some people make something like knitting or, um, wood carving and things like that. Or tinkering, some people love car restoration, repairing, or performing something like dancing or swimming, or it might be a competitive hobby like different kinds of sports, or it might be outdoor hobbies like horse riding or fishing or surfing, things like that. Or it just might be observing. Bird watchers is a good example. I have done a research about the bird watchers, a research project recently. Or they just learning something, like learning a foreign language as a hobby is a serious leisure. Liberal arts, genealogy. So you can see it's very diverse. We have something like 230 kinds of hobbies. So people are engaged in wide range of these hobbies. Last year in 2020, I published a paper and I categorized different groups of serious leisure participants into three groups. And I looked at their information sources and services because, as I said earlier, in my discipline, information science, I focus on their information behavior in the context of serious leisure. People from other scholars from psychology or sociology, they might look at the personal benefits of serious leisure or social aspect of it. So I categorize them into three groups, three main clusters. The first group, I call them appreciators, people who are involved in intellectual activities, and they focus on intellectual knowledge development, like liberal arts, book clubs, historical research or poetry or lifelong learning. So, for example, my hobby is Persian poetry. I have been involved in that for the last 35 years of my life since I was a teenager. I don't have any degree in literature, but I love Persian poetry and I spend time on learning that. So, the second group are people who are producing or collecting something. I put them into one group because there are so many similarities and overlap between what they do. So, like bonsai growers, knitting, woodworking, and different kinds you can see in this slide. And finally, the third group, they are performing something. They like dancing, surfing or rock climbing, things like that. And they need tacit knowledge, they need skills, they need embedded information. Right. So this is just a number of examples of the personal and social benefits of serious leisure, like well-being, self-actualization, enhancing self-image. They enjoy contacted with other people, so it provides them with social connectedness, especially in group activities, and it um, is very helpful in different ways. Right, so this is a map of what I do in a bigger picture. In the big area of human information behavior, I focus on everyday life information seeking, so especially non-work related activities, and then serious leisure. And I also made some interdisciplinary links between what I do and other scholars do in other disciplines, like a huge area of well-being research. And in that well-being, we have different groups of people like the elderly, so aging studies, and I looked at how serious leisure can help us for a successful aging, because people who are retired, they have more free time and they have more opportunities to spend time on serious leisure. So, and my primary research question in this research program, which includes a number of projects, is to what extent serious leisure participants experience the joy of information, and how qualitative methods enable us to capture, conceptualize, and contextualize this joy. And what is this joy of information? Basically, and traditionally in information science, we focus on negative aspects of information activities, like information overload. So, for example, my PhD from 2003 to 2006 at the University of Sheffield in the UK was about information seeking failure. So when people fail to find what they want, what they do, and what are their coping strategies, so that sort of thing. But recently, scholars in this area have realized that we focus too much on negative sides, and we need to look at positive sides as well. So what is the joyful aspects of information? And in this area of serious leisure, because they are passionate about what they do and they are so dedicated and devoted to what they do, the possibility of joyful information activities is quite high. So that's why I selected this context. And this is one example of projects that I have done so far. The first project, and I used the serious leisure perspective as my theoretical framework, and I employed a naturalistic and interpretive approach using qualitative methods. I interviewed 20 volunteers from Wagga Wagga, the city that I live in Australia at the moment. And I used the maximum variation sampling to include people from different groups, different serious leisure activities. I used a semi-structured interview with open-ended questions, and I collected data and transcribed the data, and I used the qualitative thematic analysis to identify different categories and concepts in that data. So what I have found is qualitative methods are highly applicable to capture the joy of information in real contexts. And I believe that across the spectrum of qualitative methods, phenomenological and hermeneutic perspectives are more appropriate, because we need to identify and explore people real lived experience about what they do. However, other methods like grounded theory or thematic analysis that I have done in my first project is still useful. So that's my reflection. And regarding the time, actually, these are a number of references you can see. And I will share my PowerPoint and a number of papers that I've published so far recently. And then thank you for your attention, and I will be delighted to answer your comments and questions. Thank you very much for your attention.